a guy walking in his, little short pants and boots on and saying, "I want to scrum you, Fitzpatrick. Come outside now."
I just put a hoodie on, jeans on, and just ran down onto the street in Willow Street. And there were people coming from the apartment blocks all around. There was hundreds of people in the street, and everyone was just dancing and yelling and hugging and carrying on.
I think last year they made real progress in developing young talent. And you look at our forward pack, I think we've done really well.
DSPN, the Devlin Sports Podcast Network.
Sean Fitzpatrick, absolute All Black legend and icon. And I'm going to give the man the introduction that he deserves. 92 tests for our country, played for the Baby Blacks in 1986, World Cup win in 1987, runner-up in that final in South Africa 1995, unbeaten All Black season 1997, captained our country to that historic, brilliant series win in South Africa in 1996. Retired in 1998 with a knee injury that had been plaguing him for a hell of a long time. But an absolute hero for this country. And that win in South Africa, to me, Sean, welcome. It still ranks, I rate that alongside World Cup finals, and I know a lot of people who are younger than me won't understand the importance of that series win and that victory in Pretoria and that test, but as an old git who grew up in a 76 series when the old man woke us up, that South African win in that series has to rate right up there amongst the very best ever All Black achievements.
I think so. I was just looking and knowing I was coming on the show, Martin, and lovely to see you and looking so well. And,
thank you.
All those things. I looked at a shield I've got downstairs in my little man cave that we were presented with in August in 1996 after winning that game in Pretoria. But it brings a smile to my face, and there's lovely memories. The tour, the old tour that we went on. There was the first time we'd taken away two teams, and we had a Wednesday team and a Saturday team like we had in the old days. And, John Hart did a phenomenal job of bringing that team together on and off the field. So he had nice memories after, obviously, the disappointment of Ellis Park in 95 after, we had a great World Cup. I still think it was the best World Cup I ever went to. Laurie Mains did an unbelievable job of bringing that team together from 92. And the team sort of really flourished, unfortunately, in 96 to win that series, which was amazing.
Neutral refs for the first time too.
I think we'd actually had a few neutral refs during that time, but no, it was just a wonderful series. As I said, we had two teams. Guys that came into the team. Christian Cullen came into the team from, he wasn't there in 95. But no, just a wonderful experience. I've told the story many times of Don Clark, the great Don Clark, hugging me in the tunnel. And in those days, All Blacks didn't hug each other. And just saying, he could die a happy man knowing that the All Blacks had won a series in South Africa. So that sort of brought it back to what it was all about.
This is how important it was, because you weren't just playing for yourselves, you're playing for this whole country, but you're playing for a hell of a lot of guys who'd been trying since 1921. And I know that means...
you talk about being a young man. I remember the 76 tour. When Joe Morgan scored that try in Bloemfontein, Dad waking us up in the early hours of the morning to watch those. So I never thought I'd go to South Africa as an All Black. Obviously with the breakdown of the apartheid system, to go there and to go to Kings Park and to go to Cape Town, to Newlands, Ellis Park, but Pretoria, Loftus Versfeld, the great Naas Botha and Transvaal and those sort of teams that played there, the Bulls, and just a wonderful rugby experience. And I still I was there last year for the game at Ellis Park when the All Blacks played there, and just to see how that country has transformed itself through sport. To go to an Ellis Park that was just they are so passionate. I thought New Zealanders were passionate about rugby. To go to Ellis Park last year and to see how passionate the South African fans are, really brought home what rugby's all about and sport's all about.
Do they still all try and scrum you outside the ground?
I want to scrum you,
scrum you, Fitzpatrick. Yeah.
I still, I've told you that story before. Oliver Brown and Richard Lowe and I in a pub, and a guy walking in his, little short pants and boots on, and saying, "I want to scrum you, Fitzpatrick. Come outside now." Yeah, we still get that, but being a bit off.
Hello, when you talk about memories like that, do every time you bump into one of those guys that was on that tour, it just must take you back to a time. It must be something that's forever. Just the bonds you have with those guys that are in that dressing room, those guys in that inner circle. Talk to us about that a little bit.
Yeah, I think the people that it's like a family, Martin. These memories you have and the time you spent together, and when we come back to New Zealand, we live on the Wonga, just north of Auckland, and Steve McDowell's up there, Bernie McCarthy's up there. It's like I haven't seen him for a year, and you're like long lost family members coming together and having a beer and having a chuckle about a few experiences. Zinzan lives up here. I don't see Zinny a lot, probably 2 or 3 times a year, but we hug and we have a little chuckle about different things. But it's like meeting your brother that you haven't seen for a year. So nice experiences. Obviously when I come back, I spend we have in Auckland drinks every Christmas, and all those guys that we played with through the sort of 80s and 90s come together, and it was like it was yesterday.
Yeah, I bet.
The same old laughs, ribbing each other. To see John Hart, Morris Trapp, those sort of people. Graham Henry, Graham brought me out of the university club in Auckland, turned me from a prop to a hooker. That's we still laugh about that. Him telling me I was too small to be a prop. It helped having John Drake there, but it's just lovely experiences.
And the nuns, that photo of you, that great photo where you're waving up at the nuns. I mean, they're an iconic memory for me of that '96 tour as well. Those guys. I mean, what a crazy thing to do, to dress like that the whole tour.
Yeah, it's amazing. One of them, I was trying to think of their names actually. One of them became a board member, a New Zealand board member.
Oh, brilliant, really?
One of those nuns. Yeah. So, I guess I picture that now, Martin, me waving up at that Loftus Versfeld album, that beautiful old stand they had there, because it never rained in Pretoria.
No.
And they were there, but that's that's what sport can do. Were you on the tour? Did you go on the tour?
No, look, I talked to Tony Johnson about it yesterday. I was in Wellington. I just started a new job. And this is what it meant back home, mate, that, when the final whistle went, we had bought our first place in Willow Street, a little apartment. And my then wife, she was asleep in bed. I was watching it by myself. And I didn't know what to do. It's 5 o'clock in the morning. And you're just so euphoric. I just put a hoodie on, jeans on, and just ran down onto the street in Willow Street. And there were people coming from the apartment blocks all around. There was hundreds of people in the street, and everyone was just dancing and yelling and hugging and carrying on.
Really?
And that's how much it meant, because I was like you. I got woken up in 76, and it was just something that was just the unachievable that had been achieved. And also, I suppose, after the disappointment of 95, especially with that team and the calibre of quality of players we had in that team.
Yeah.
And, people probably don't remember, but Jonah wasn't even in that team.
No, he wasn't.
He was actually sitting there on the bench, yeah. Oh, so he was actually in the stand. Glenn was on the left wing, yeah.
It was amazing, actually. I'm just sort of thinking back now, and I can remember John Hart going to the board at New Zealand Rugby and saying, "Look, we're going to go to South Africa on this tour. We need to take 36 players." And one of the board members said, "But if you take 36 players, you obviously need a bit of management and stuff. You won't all fit on one bus." And that was their main concern. But I think the detail that John went into, along with Mike Banks, in terms of making sure that we prepared well, we'd come off a series. That was the first time we had a Tri-Nations series. We played Australia in Brisbane. Then Bunsey scored that late try to win the game. I always remember Foxy was commentating. He said he can't believe Mertens didn't kick the ball. Mertz passed the ball and ended up, we scored the winning try. And then we went to Cape Town for the last game of the Tri-Nations, and we won that game. And then the first game was at Kings Park of the 3-test series.
See,
It's phenomenal.
I consider that, because of the history of our tours over there, that was a 4-test series. I think every fan considered it a 4-test series, even though that one wasn't officially part of it. Did you consider it a 4-test series?
Yes, because we played them 4 Saturdays in a row, the world champions.
Yeah.
So on the back of the Tri-Nations, I think we played 10 tests in 12 weeks or something. It was something like that. But yeah, and I usually say Jonah, and Jonah could not have been better. I still remember walking off at Loftus Versfeld and Jonah leading the haka of the guys that hadn't even stripped, and it was just a phenomenal job by Mike Banks and John Hart in terms of making sure all 36 players felt very much part of that series win.
I hope that everyone that is watching this is inspired to look it up on YouTube, to look at that footage again. And the last couple of minutes and stanzas in that game where we were I think we're up by 7. This is a game where Zinni kicked a goal. John Preston came on and just hit 2 clutch penalties, and then Zinzan at the end, they can't score. I think he was saying something like that, and just the sheer heroic defence. And at the end, that whistle goes, and that famous shot of you just pounding the turf. Can you even remember doing that at the time, or can you remember what you were thinking?
Yeah, I just remember thinking. I remember running, sort of like it was 4 minutes to go. The ref, I asked the ref. I said, "How long to go?" And it was a French guy, and he said, "We have 4 minutes to go." Then I asked him again, and he said, "We have 2 minutes to go." And I can still remember running backwards and forwards over one side of the field to where the nuns were, and running past Olo Brown, and Olo was wheezing away on the high belt, and I said, "Come on, Brownie, we've got 2 minutes to go. Let's just go back." And then I was running back, and Brownie was still going. Almost had to turn him around so they can go back over. And then they had a penalty, and that's when Zinni yelled out, "They can't score! They can't score!" Because we all knew if we went to Ellis Park at 1-1, there was very little chance of us winning the series. So, and that was it. Was just sheer desperation. And the euphoria of just the hitting of the ground was just like, we've done it, and that's what it meant to us. We just, as I said, we grew up watching the All Blacks play the Springboks, never winning a series, and the Don Clarks of the world, and Harty and Mike Banks, they all knew the history better than us. And what I loved, being at Pretoria, where they are absolute rugby gods. They know rugby. The fans know rugby better than it. And all the abuse we got, and leading into the series, and in the pubs and all that. But we walked around the grounds afterwards, where they have their barbecues, where they have their braais, and they could not have been more complimentary.
Fantastic.
They were like thanking us for the great series. Congratulations. And that's the rivalry between the All Blacks and the Springboks. I thought when the game went professional that we'd lose a bit of that rivalry, but it still is. Being there last year, it's still as great as it's ever been.
Well, we're days away now from an Eden Park test, which feels like it is as important as any All Black test of recent times. I've called it the most important since the World Cup final, and so much writing on this for Scott Robertson in the tenure. And the build-up is intense here, as well you can imagine. We've been talking about this probably since the start of the year. And you mentioned the word desperate.
Right.
That, to me, is the feeling. I love it when the All Blacks are like this, when we got our backs against the wall and everyone hates us and we have to win games. It tends to bring out something in us, and something. When I say us, I mean you guys that play. And it also unites us as, I think, a country, because it means so much to us.
Yeah, very much so. And obviously, there's a bit of history at Eden Park, and we feel comfortable there. You know, haven't lost there since I was captain in '94, believe it or not. Yeah, it's you know, whether it's, you know, it's a 2-test series. You know, that's why I'd look at it. And you know, we're coming off a loss against Argentina. So yeah, we'll be desperate for sure.
Where are we at the moment? Where do you look at the All Blacks and think, you know, after watching what you've seen last year, what you've seen so far this year? I thought most of us saw in bits in that first test in Cordoba. We looked really, really good. And then we kind of lay an egg against Argentina in that second test. Where are we at in your mind at the moment?
I thought Scott's, you and I need to change our mindset that we're developing a team for the World Cup. And you know, I think last year they made real progress in developing young talent. You know, you look at our forward pack. I think we've done really well. I think we've got some, you know, Tamatai Williams and Fabian Holland and these sort of names are going to be crucial for us to be successful in Australia in 2 years' time. So I'm quite comfortable. Obviously, the loss last week against Argentina, and what a lot of people, they probably know, being rugby experts as we are, Argentina are probably the best team in terms of their performance over the last 2 years, 18 months. They'll probably be the best team in the world in terms of how they've developed the teams they've beaten. They beat the Lions, you know, they've beaten South Africa. So, you know, I think we're in a fairly good place. There's a few positions that we need a bit more depth. So, you know, the guys are learning. I said to Scott Barrett, I think last year, you know, that was after his first year as being All Black captain. And you know, for me, my first year as All Black captain, I didn't know what I was doing. I didn't like it. I didn't enjoy it. And that you just develop every year. You get better at what you do. Look at what you do. You get better every year.
You hope so, yeah.
So I think we're getting better, and it's just going to take time. World Rugby is, you know, the top 5 teams are as good as each other. Anyone can beat anyone at the moment, which is great. You know, you look at the championship. Yeah, I think it's as a fan, I loved what Australia is doing at the moment. You know, the way that Lions series, I thought they were phenomenal. I think Joe Smith's done an amazing job. So, you know. And you know, the South Africans have got their backs to the wall also. You know, they're looking a bit tired, but I'm sure at Eden Park we'll see 2 teams that are desperate for a win. Interesting
you say to me that we have to rearrange our thinking, and because of the age and stage that we are in life, you know, I've Max on regularly on the podcast as well, and look, I'm an old kid. I want the All Blacks to win every game. I grew up with the All Blacks winning every game, and I hate the idea that we're not out there trying to win every game, and that I hate the idea that rugby is reduced to every 4 years, and what happens in between doesn't count, because to me it still does count. But I understand that. I'm going to remind you of a comment that you made when we first started Radio Sport back in '98. The All Blacks lost 5 games in a row that year after you'd retired and Bunsey retired and all, as you know. And I remember being on that breakfast show one day, and I said something that, because I'd kind of grabbed this World Cup thing early and just said, look, I don't really care what happens in between. I don't mind if the All Blacks lose all these games, providing we win the World Cup. And I was watching a rugby program about a week later after I'd said it, and the great Sean Fitzpatrick came on. He said there was some idiot on the radio saying that he doesn't mind us losing. And you were saying, that's not the All Black way. We got to keep winning. It's interesting now, 20-something years later, 25 years later, that you're saying this to me, that, hey, we actually have to concentrate now on what happens every 4 years.
No, I don't. I want the All Blacks to win every game. I'm like you. Nothing's changed, but I appreciate that we need to develop talent. And we don't go like, I'm sure Australians have come around and win World Cups. And I'm like, bloody hell. But their fans didn't mind them losing games as long as they developed the next George Regan, or but I want the All Blacks to win every game without question. But they're not giving away caps or that sort of stuff, because the Fabian Hollands of the world have come through a pathway. I saw Fabian play last year in Montpellier for the All Black 15. All Blacks 15 came on and played 20 minutes at the end of the game, and I was like, wow. where did this kid come from?
Right.
I'd never seen him before, and out of the blue, it probably wasn't out of the blue, but the pathway that these, Martin, in our day, we had one Test All Blacks back in the the late '80s. Where now we don't have one Test All Blacks. The guys that play Test matches are there for the long haul. And that's all down to the pathway of New Zealand rugby, which is doing a great job.
See, South African fans, I get a lot of correspondence from South African fans, and a lot of them appeared in this mindset as well, that Russie's got this idea. He's absolutely brilliant, but also, dropping a game or two, or dropping, we lost 4 games last year, the All Blacks. To me, that's unacceptable. We can't lose 4 games in a year, but they kind of think maybe that, okay, it's okay to do that. How do you strike that balance, though? How do you get that balance where, we're approaching a massive game this weekend, followed by another one, and yet if we win the World Cup in 2 years' time, we're not going to really look back at this might be a pivotal moment, but if we lose this game and we win the World Cup, it won't mean as much to us. That's what I'm trying to say. How do we balance that out?
No, I don't. The sun would rise. That was our thing. We'd lose the game, and I can always remember Dad saying to me, "Son, look, the sun will rise tomorrow," which it does. But the unfortunate thing was South Africa's the same as New Zealand. When they lost that test to Australia after winning 22 points up, or 20 points up after 22 minutes, the South African fans were on their case without question. As Joe Smith said, we played the bear. You watch them in Cape Town, and Australia could have won that game too, to be honest. But that's why the All Blacks, that's why South Africa, year in, year out, are so good. Because people like you and I and the fans, we demand, the All Blacks to win. Brian Lahore saying to me when he handed me my first All Black jersey, congratulations, you're now All Black number 871. You are expected to win.
Right.
As an All Black, we're expected to win, which I love. I love you and I expecting the All Blacks to win. We expect them to win on Saturday.
Yep.
So long may that continue. And, the All Blacks don't go into a test match thinking they're going to lose.
Ever.
Or they're going to try a new 9 or a new 10. No. So Scott Robertson, he knows that if they lose, the pressure is going to become insurmountable. Eventually, it just wears you down. Look at us in '92. The grief you gave us in '92 when we were losing.
Oh yeah.
They don't go into a test match thinking they're going to lose or they're going to try something. So, as fans, keep on demanding that we win. That's every man in blue change places with you tomorrow, as you would.
Yeah, and long may it continue. I mean, that to me is why we are who we are. Why we,
I love all that.
Playing for 100 years of blokes. They didn't get paid to do this, remember, and were spent 6 months on a boat, some of them, and all of that kind of thing. Just absolute heroic stories. Where do you watch it? So when you're at home, like, do you go to? I'm just trying to work out. So it's 3. No, you're not going to a pub at 3 in the morning, are you? No, sorry, 7 in the morning.
So 8 o'clock.
8 o'clock in the morning.
It's 7 o'clock. It's 8 o'clock here.
Okay.
So it'll be 8 a.m. in the morning.
Oh, that's gentleman's hours. Yeah, that's great. Yeah.
So I'll be downstairs watching it on the TV. I love it. I can't wait. It'll be, as I said, as you said, it brings back all those memories of, playing at Eden Park and all my South African mates. I've just had a call from one of your counterparts, Dan Nicol, wanting to talk to me. And believe it or not, Francois Pienaar in the summer lives about 100 metres from me here. So no doubt we'll have a little chinwag about it later today.
It probably reminds you as well about that game in 1995 when the plane flew over, eh? Can you remember that game? Does he ever say that to you?
Oh, no, I sort of remind him of 96 more.
Right.
We actually played Francois' last test was in Cape Town against us. That last game of the Tri-Nations when he unfortunately got injured and he didn't play in the series, actually.
I remember also, mate, a couple before we let you go, and thank you so much for your time. I really appreciate this. And that, we didn't score against them in 95 in that final. The first test of that Tri-Nations year in 96, we won that test. I think it was in Christchurch. We didn't score a try against them either in that game. And so there's tension going into Cape Town, wasn't there, about can we cross the line against these buggers? And then Glenn did that beautiful inside step, couple of moves, and that kind of opened it up for us, didn't it?
Yeah, it did. We sort of went into that series, even though 95 we sort of had parity in scrums. We knew we had to sort of try and dominate them because they're just the Afrikaners, and they like dominating people. And if we could get parity, if not dominate them, the John Allens of the world and those sort of players, Mark Andrews. We knew we'd have a chance, and because we knew with Mertz and Glenn Osborne and Jeff and all these names as Bunce and Walter, and they would just roll off my tongue, they would have a chance. So winning in Cape Town, although that was the last game of the championship, didn't count for the series. And then going to Kings Park, which was one of my favourite grounds. We had to win there to go one up.
Yeah, those grounds. I mean, So
I wish the boys well. Going to Eden Park, the South Africans are going to come there, knowing that we haven't the All Blacks haven't lost. It's like our home ground. We haven't lost there since '94. So I'm sure South Africa will be talking a lot about that.
Thank you so much for everything you did as an All Black captain for us, mate. Always appreciate it. Just a dumb old fan saying thank you.
A dumb old fan. One of our great fans and one of our great commentators of rugby. Thank you for what you do.
DSPN.